Good morning, everyone.
Good morning, Rabbi.
A good moed. We are learning Mishna Yishkalim, Parak Vav, Chapter 6, Mishnah Hey, Mishnah 5. Shleisha Asar Shayfaras Hayab Mikdash. There were 13 chests in the Beis HaMikdash. These chests were called shafaris previously because they were shaped like a shofar. They were narrow on top and curved, and then wide on the bottom, so that anybody who was sticking their hand in to put shkalim in, if it would have been just a regular chest, it could have possibly have been that they would have looked like they're putting in, but really they were taking out, without anybody noticing. So therefore, they made the top very narrow so that all you could do is just drop the coin in and not be able to stick your hand in. That's why it's called the shofar. There are 13 chests in the Beis HaMikdash, because of Aleyan. And on the 13 were written the following. Tiklin Chadatin means new shkalim. Remember shkalim, the half shekel that we give towards the yearly communal sacrifices. V'tiklin Atikin. Another chest said old shkalim. Another one said kinin. Another one said bird pairs. Another one said geizlei ola, young birds for an ola. Eitzim. Another chest said wood. Another one levina. Another one said levina, which is frankincense, which was offered on the altar inside the Beis HaMikdash and with menachas meal offerings. Zav l'chvayres. Gold for silver vessels. For service vessels. Gold for service vessels. Shisha linadava. And 6 were for voluntary communal offerings. So let's just talk a little bit about here. We'll talk about the last one for a second. A little bit backwards. So it said Shisha linadava. 6 were for voluntary communal offerings. We've learned previously that there were times that in case the Mizbeach wasn't busy and it would have been no offerings brought on it, that a special fund to buy sacrifices, olas, burnt offerings, that would be burned specifically for the purpose of keeping the Mizbeach, busy, keeping the Mizbeach always working. So there were 6 of these chests were set aside towards that money. Now, those 6 chests, the way they worked is like this. This is how they explain here on the bottom. There are 5 types of offerings whose surplus funds are used to pay for the voluntary communal ola offerings. These 5 offerings are chatas, a sin offering, asham, a guilt offering, bird pairs, meaning two birds that come from zavim, zavais, a woman given birth, 4 nazar offerings, 5 the special asham of Metzora. So now, we had learned previously that if a person set aside money towards these sacrifices, and it comes out, I didn't have to spend all that money towards it, the surplus of it goes towards these communal voluntary offerings to keep the Mizbeach always busy. There was a separate chest for each one. One chest said chatas, one chest said asham, one chest said kinim, one chest said nazir, one said Metzora. For some reason, they had to have a separate chest for each one. I'm not sure why. Because at the end of the day, they were all used for the same thing. But there were 5 chests for each one of those possible cases of the surplus money designated for them to go towards these, for the Kitzah Mizbeach, as it was called, for these sacrifices for the Mizbeach. And then there was one chest that had no name on it. It just said donations. Because that was in case it wasn't from any surplus money. You just wanted to give money towards those voluntary communal sacrifices. That's where you put the money into. So those were those last 6. Now, the other one, the 5th one that was mentioned was called gold for service vessels. In that situation, they explain here in the notes, if someone pledged a certain amount of gold to purchase a service vessel, a klisharis, he would place the amount of gold or coins of an equal value in the collection chest marked gold for service vessels. That's where you'd put the money. The same thing if, let's say, you pledged wood for the Mizbeach or you pledged levina, the frankincense, to be offered, you would not put wood in the chest or frankincense into the chest, but rather the money, the value of that, if you pledged levina, you would put in the money for purchasing levina. That's the money you would put in the chest, and that would the money would be used for. So that's what we have here so far. We have here an explanation for these last 4. Now the Mishnah is going to go back to the first ones and explain. Tiklin chadatin. If you the box, the chest that said new shkalim, shebachal shana b'shana, that was the yearly shkalim that people were supposed to give towards that year's, that fiscal year for karbanis from Nisan to Nisan. They went ahead and they gave that year's shkalim. It went into that chest. That chest was for this year's half shekel. Va'atikin, the chest that said old ones is mishli shakal shtakad. Somebody didn't give the year for the previous years. He missed. He didn't give the shekel of that year. Shekel shana haba. So now he gives an extra shekel for the coming year. Meaning he's going to have to give that year's shekel plus a shekel to make up for the year before that he missed. And it's in that chest that those old that says tiklin atikin, where it said the old shkolim. That means the person who missed the previous years and had to make up, he put it into that chest. And they explain that what was that money then used for? That money was used towards the shiarei halishka. We learned previously that all the shkalim, after they were collected, were put into a chamber in the Beis HaMikdash. 3 times a year, the Kohen would go in and take a portion out to actually purchase what needed to be purchased. Then there was the leftovers inside, and the leftovers had their use. These old shkalim went from the chest that said old shkalim into that chamber with the surplus, what was left over from the shkalim of that previous year in that chamber. Okay, that's that. Kenan. Now, here we are going to have a machlokes. We mentioned there was one chest that was called Kenan. Kenan means bird pairs. When we say the word Kenan, we are specifically, when it comes to bird offerings, there are 2 birds we can use. We can use what's called a tar, which is a tar is called a turtle. They call it a turtle dove, they call it a pigeon, but the point is it's an adult bird. Whatever that's called, they call it adult pigeons. That's what we say Kenan, that's what Kenan means. A geizel is a young bird, a young dove, because that's the kosher, that's the other kosher bird. You've got a tar, which is a mature bird, and you have a geizel, which is a younger bird, which is that everybody seems to translate that as a yoina, as a dove. Okay, so now you had one chest said kinim and one chest said geizle oila, which would imply one box is for the mature pigeons, and the other one geizel, which means a young bird, are geizle oila, young birds that were meant to be brought as an ola, as a burnt offering. So now the Mishnah says kinim heim toirim. The box that says kinim means toirim. It means the mature turtle pigeons. The geizle oila, the young birds for the ola, heim b'nei yaina. They are the young dove birds. The kulan oilis, both of them are oilas, are burnt offerings. Meaning, none of these birds that we're talking about with these chests are obligatory birds. There are certain people, let's say like a woman who like a zav and a zava. Let me just make sure I'm getting this right. Right. If you had sometimes the two bird a bird pair offering would be actually not voluntary, it would be obligatory. The chatas and ola brought by a zav, a zava, a poor woman after childbirth, or a poor mitzvah. These were the people who had to bring 2 birds. They had to bring them. And one was an ola and one was a chatas, but they're obligatory. According to this opinion, which the Mishnah says, Div Rabbi Yehuda, these are the words of Rabbi Yehuda. According to this opinion, these chests were only for voluntary offerings. A person who voluntarily offered to bring a bird offering, whether he decided to bring from the mature pigeons, or he decided to bring from the young doves. A person who voluntarily offered to bring, and he now was going to bring it, he didn't necessarily have to bring the birds themselves to the Kohen. He actually could put the money for them into the box designated either for the pigeons or for the doves, and that's what those boxes were used for. That's according to Rabbi Yehuda. The Chachamim say, Kenan, the box that said Kenan, echad chatas v'echad oila. That was where a person that was for when a person had to bring one as a sin offering and one as a burnt offering. The guys like Ola and the box that said the young birds for the Ola, Kulan Oilas. That box was for all, that was completely for voluntary burnt offerings that people on their own decided to donate to offer. So according to the Chachamim, the box that said Kenan was specifically used for the obligatory ones. And you had one was going to be a sin offering, one bird is going to be a sin offering, one was going to be a burnt offering. Now, in this kind of case, in order for that to work, the chest marked bird pairs was used to deposit shkalim for obligatory burnt offerings. The money would have to be wrapped in a packet so that both katas and ola would be purchased from one person's money. Meaning, if you're talking about that it's obligatory, right? If we're talking about it's obligatory, so that it comes out that you had to make sure that the chatas and olah be purchased from that person's money. Meaning, you got to make sure if it's going for that person's obligation, you got to make sure his money is being used for it. So therefore, if that person would go ahead and put money for his obligatory bird offerings in there, he would have to go ahead, wrap it in a packet, and make sure that that money stayed the same so that his money was used towards his obligation. And then also it says, now according to the Chachamim, so you've got what the box that said, the chest that said Kinim was used for the obligatory ones. The box that said Goizle Oila, the young birds for the Ola, weren't just used for young birds. They were used for all voluntary offerings, whether they were the offerings of the doves or of the pigeons. Mm-hmm. So now if you went ahead and you put money into that chest, you had to wrap it in some kind of a wrapping. It said on it pigeons, or it said on it Ola, or it said on it young birds. Because again, even funds for voluntary offerings, right? To make sure that the right kind of bird was used, the outside of each packet would state whether the money was to be used to purchase a turtle dove or a pigeon. So therefore, in that case also, according to the Chachamim, both cases according to the Chachamim, you got to wrap that money in a package and identify it in some way to make sure that it goes to the right places. So what comes out here at the end is a machlokes Rabbi Yehuda and the Chachamim. According to Rabbi Yehuda, that you had two chests for, everybody knew there were two chests for bird offerings. According to Rabbi Yehuda, the one that said kinim, that was used for voluntary offerings of pigeons. The box that said goizle oila, that means young birds for ola, those were used for the young doves. And both of them were not used for there was no money put in for obligatory offerings. Why was that? So they explain, because halacha is like this. If a person sets aside, let's say a bird for a chatas, right? Now, let me read to you. This was because chatas offerings were never brought with the money deposit check, because the person making the deposit might die before the coming had a chance to bring his offering. If that happened, the chatas bird would become unusable, as would any chatas money not yet spent. So that's the rule. You've got a sin offer. You brought a chatas, and you designated the bird for it. Then the person dies, right? It's possible. It can't be used. Can't be brought as an offering. That would apply whether it's the bird itself or the money that was designated for that. So now, if I drop chatas money in there, right? If I drop chatas money in there, and then the person who dropped the chatas money in there dies, you've got money that you can't use, and it can get, and we're afraid it's going to get mixed with everything else. It's going to mix with everything else, and then nothing is able to be used. So therefore, Yehuda said, if you're talking about obligatory birds, you cannot put money in a chest for it. You've got to go ahead and directly deal with the Kohen. Give him the birds, give him the money, directly deal with him and let him take care of it. Mm-hmm. Because of the fact that you can't just put it in the chest because we're afraid things are going to get messed up. That's why Yehuda said that both chests were for voluntary birds. The Chachamim weren't concerned for that. They felt it didn't have to go so far to be concerned that maybe the guy's going to die and everything is going to get messed up. And therefore, they said that the one that said kinim, bird pairs, was for the obligatory ones. And the one that said goizle oila, although goizle refers to young birds, whatever voluntary bird offering we're bringing would go into that chest. So one was for the obligatory birds, one was for the voluntary birds. Have a wonderful day and a good night.
I'm not getting the point.